Ever wonder how those new medicines
Hmm.
and treatments actually make it to your doctor's
Yeah.
office?
Yeah.
Like, how does that whole process work?
Uh-huh.
Well, it's not magic, it's science.
Yeah.
And it all starts with something called a clinical trial protocol.
Right.
And today, we're going behind the scenes
Oh,
of these
yeah.
really crucial documents.
Okay.
We're going to untangle all the jargon,
Mm-hmm.
decode the complexities,
Yeah.
and discover why understanding these protocols
Yeah.
is so important for everyone.
Right.
Even if you're not a scientist,
Yeah.
you'll see how they impact the development of new therapies, how they safeguard participants, and ultimately how they shape the future of healthcare.
Yeah. What's really fascinating about these protocols is that they act as a very detailed roadmap.
Right.
They guide researchers every step of the way from that initial concept to
Yeah.
the final analysis.
Okay, so imagine a protocol like the instruction manual for a groundbreaking experiment.
That's a great way to put it.
It's like a recipe, but instead of baking a cake,
Yes.
we're talking about, potentially life-saving treatments.
And just like a recipe needs to be precise to work, a clinical trial protocol needs to be meticulously crafted to ensure safety, accuracy, and ethical conduct.
Yeah, so why are these protocols so vital?
Well, think of them as the backbone
Okay.
of any research involving human participants.
Right.
They serve as the master plan outlining every single step of the research process.
Okay.
This ensures that everyone involved is on the same page,
Right.
working towards that common goal.
Right.
But even more importantly, protocols protect the participants.
Mm-hmm.
They make sure that their rights and well-being are safeguarded
Okay.
and that the potential benefits of the research outweigh any risks.
So it's not just about scientific rigor.
It's not just about scientific
It's
risk.
also about ethics
Absolutely.
and patient safety.
Absolutely. And on top of that, a well-defined protocol ensures that the data collected is reliable and trustworthy.
Right.
This is critical because the results of these trials ultimately inform healthcare decisions, influencing the treatments that doctors prescribe and the therapies that are available to patients.
This is really eye-opening.
Yeah.
So how did these protocols actually come together? I mean, they sound incredibly complex.
They are. So to illustrate this, let's dive into a real-world example.
Okay.
We're going to be looking at the Crescendo study.
Okay.
It's a phase 3 clinical trial.
Mm-hmm.
It investigated the effectiveness of a drug called rimonabant in reducing cardiovascular events in abdominally obese patients.
Oh, that sounds interesting.
Yeah.
So what's the first step in building a protocol like that?
Well, the first step is to provide clear general information.
Okay.
Essentially, it's introducing the study's key details. So this includes the official title, an identifying number for tracking purposes, and the more memorable study name, which in this case for the Crescendo study, it was Comprehensive Rimonabant Evaluation Study of Cardiovascular Endpoints and Outcomes.
This is a lot easier to say than the full title.
Right. And they also have to specify the version date.
Right.
It's really important for tracking changes.
Okay.
As well as details about the sponsor, the monitor who oversees the trial, the lead investigator, and the trial locations.
So it's all about transparency and accountability right from the beginning.
Exactly. So in Crescendo, the sponsor was Sanofi Synthelabo Recherche from France.
Okay.
The monitor was Dr. Judith H. Murphy from Sanofi Aventis in Pennsylvania.
Okay.
And the lead investigator was Professor Eric J. Topol
Okay.
at the Cleveland Clinic Foundation in Ohio.
Okay.
And the trial itself was global, taking place in multiple locations around the world.
Global scope, top-tier researchers. This is some serious science.
It is.
Okay, so that's the general information. What comes next?
Next comes the background information.
Okay.
And here's where they really dive into the nitty-gritty of the research.
Okay.
They detail everything that's known about the investigational product, which in this case is rimonabant.
Okay.
And this includes summaries of any preclinical studies, potential risks that have been identified, and how the drug will be administered,
Right.
including dosage and regimen.
So they're laying the groundwork
Yeah,
and justifying why this particular research is needed.
exactly.
Okay.
They also describe the specific population that they're targeting,
Right.
who are the ideal participants for this study.
Right.
This background information is all about setting the stage for the entire trial.
It's like painting a picture of
Yeah.
the research landscape before zooming in on the specific details of the experiment.
Exactly. And once the background is established, the protocol outlines the aims and objectives.
Okay.
This is where the research questions
Uh-huh.
take center stage.
What's the difference between an aim and an objective? They seem pretty similar.
That's a good question. Think of the aim as the overarching goal,
Okay.
the big question that the study wants to answer.
Okay.
The objectives are more specific, outlining the measurable steps they'll take to answer that question.
Okay.
It's kind of like aiming for a target and
Yeah.
then defining the steps to hit it.
Okay. I'm starting to see the distinction.
Yeah.
So for the Crescendo study,
Mm-hmm.
what was the primary aim?
Their primary aim was to see if rimonabant was better than a placebo
Oh, okay.
in improving cardiovascular health in patients who had abdominal obesity
Uh-huh.
and were at increased risk for heart problems.
So they were trying to determine
Mm-hmm.
if this drug could actually make a difference
Yeah.
in preventing heart attacks, strokes,
Yeah.
or other cardiovascular issues.
Exactly. And then to get a more complete picture, they also had secondary aims, focusing on things like hospitalization rates, overall mortality, and the safety profile of the drug.
So the secondary aims provide valuable insights,
Mm-hmm.
but don't directly determine
Right.
the main outcome of the study.
Precisely. After outlining the aims and objectives,
Okay.
the protocol delves into endpoints.
Okay.
These are essentially the measurable outcomes
Mhm.
used to assess the effectiveness of the treatment.
So if the aim is to reduce blood pressure, the endpoint would be the actual change in blood pressure measurements throughout the study.
You got it.
Okay.
Endpoints need to be clearly defined and easy to measure,
Okay.
providing concrete data points for analysis.
But are there different types of endpoints?
There are. So they distinguish between primary and secondary endpoints.
Okay.
The primary endpoint is the most important outcome, directly linked to the main research question.
Right.
It's the star of the show, if you will.
Okay. What was the primary endpoint in the Crescendo study?
It was the first occurrence of any of these serious cardiovascular events. A heart attack, a stroke, or death from a cardiovascular cause.
So that's pretty serious stuff.
Yeah.
And the secondary endpoints, I'm guessing, provided more nuanced information about the treatment's impact.
Exactly. So in Crescendo, they looked at things like hospitalization rates for cardiovascular reasons,
Mhm.
deaths from any cause, any adverse events that occurred,
Okay.
changes in heart rate and blood pressure,
Okay.
and even conducted hematology and biochemistry assessments.
Wow. So they were gathering a
Yeah.
really comprehensive data set to understand all the potential effects of the drug.
It's all about getting a complete picture.
Right.
Now, there's another type of endpoint worth mentioning called surrogate endpoints.
Yeah, I remember you briefly touched on that earlier.
Yeah.
What are those again?
So imagine you want to study a treatment
Yeah. Okay.
that's designed to prevent a disease that
Yeah.
takes a very long time to develop. Instead of waiting years to see if the treatment actually prevents the disease,
Uh-huh.
you might use a surrogate endpoint.
Right.
It's a measure that's thought to be closely related to the disease,
Uh-huh.
but can be observed much sooner.
So instead of waiting to see if the treatment actually prevents heart attacks,
Mm-hmm.
they might track cholesterol levels,
Exactly.
which are known to be a risk factor for heart disease.
Using a surrogate endpoint can make the trial shorter
Right.
and more efficient.
It's like using a shortcut,
Yeah.
but one that's scientifically valid and reliable.
Precisely. The next critical element in a protocol is outlining the inclusion-exclusion criteria.
Okay.
This determines who can and cannot participate in the study.
This seems incredibly important, like who gets to be a
Oh.
part of the research and who doesn't.
It's all about selecting the right participants
Right.
to ensure that the study's results are accurate
Yeah.
and meaningful.
Okay.
They need to include individuals
Okay.
who are likely to benefit from the treatment
Okay.
and exclude those who might be harmed
Yeah.
or for whom the treatment wouldn't be appropriate.
So who did they include in the Crescendo study?
They included men and women aged 55 or older
Right.
who had abdominal obesity,
Okay.
defined as a waist circumference greater than 102 centimeters for men
Okay.
and 88 centimeters for women.
Okay.
And crucially, they also had to have at least one coronary heart disease risk equivalent or
Right.
2 major cardiovascular risk factors.
So they were specifically targeting individuals at
Suggestions.
higher risk of developing cardiovascular problems.
The risk equivalents
Okay.
included things like a recent heart attack, a history of angina,
Okay.
evidence of multivessel disease,
Uh-huh.
or having undergone a procedure like PCI.
Okay.
It also included a prior stroke or peripheral artery disease.
So these were individuals who had already experienced heart problems.
Right.
Or were considered very likely to develop them.
Right. As for major cardiovascular risk factors,
Okay.
They considered things like metabolic syndrome,
Uh-huh.
asymptomatic cerebrovascular disease,
Okay.
renal artery disease,
Okay.
elevated levels of HSCRP, which is a marker of inflammation,
Okay.
and even just advanced age.
Okay, so they cast a wide net in terms of risk factors.
Yeah.
But everyone included had a significant chance of benefiting from the study.
Right.
What about the exclusion criteria?
Yeah.
Who did they leave out?
They excluded anyone whose obesity was caused by a known endocrine disorder,
Okay.
individuals who had undergone bariatric surgery,
Okay.
those on a low-calorie diet,
Uh-huh.
anyone with certain other health conditions,
Okay.
and, of course, breastfeeding women.
It seems like they were trying to eliminate any factors that might skew the results
Exactly.
or put participants at unnecessary risk.
By carefully defining who's in and who's out,
Okay.
they aim to create a study population
Uh-huh.
that would accurately reflect the potential benefits and risks of the treatment.
This is fascinating stuff. Before we move on, I want to take a moment to thank London Heartbeat's Z Academy for their incredible support in bringing you this deep dive.
Yeah, great.
They offer over 140 healthcare courses,
Yeah.
equipping you with the knowledge
Yeah.
to navigate the world of health and medicine.
Right.
You can connect with them on Facebook, Instagram, Spotify, and YouTube to explore their courses and subscribe for regular updates.
Yeah, they're a valuable resource for
Yeah.
anyone who's passionate about learning more about healthcare.
Don't miss out on future amazing discussions like this one.
Right.
Now, getting back to our deep dive, what comes after the inclusion
Mm.
and exclusion criteria?
Next, we move on to the heart of the protocol,
Okay.
trial design and methodology.
Okay.
This section outlines the overall structure of the study and
Ah.
the specific procedures that will be followed.
Okay.
It's like the blueprint for the experiment itself.
Okay, so this is where we see the research in action.
Yeah.
So, what was the design of the Crescendo study?
They used a design
Right.
that's considered the gold standard for this kind of research.
Uh-huh.
It was multi-center, multinational, randomized,
Right.
parallel group, double-blind,
Uh-huh.
and placebo-controlled.
Whoa, that's a lot of technical terms.
It is.
Can you break that down for me?
Of course. So multi-center simply means the study took place at multiple locations
Right.
around the world.
Okay.
Multinational means it involved participants
Right.
from different countries.
Right.
Randomized is crucial.
Okay.
It means participants were randomly assigned
Good.
to either the rimonabant group or the placebo group.
Okay.
This helps eliminate bias and ensure the groups are comparable.
So it's like flipping a coin
Yeah.
to decide who gets the real treatment
Right.
and who gets the placebo. That
Yep.
way you're comparing apples to apples.
Exactly.
Right.
Parallel group means both groups are running at the same time.
Right.
And double blind is key for eliminating bias on
Wow.
both sides.
Okay.
It means that neither the participants nor the researchers knew
Right.
who was getting the real drug and who was getting the placebo.
I could see how that's crucial for getting unbiased results.
Yeah.
And placebo-controlled, of course, means there's a comparison group that isn't receiving
Right.
the active treatment.
Right.
This helps determine if the drug's effects are truly due to the drug itself or just a placebo effect.
You've got it. But the design is just one part of the story.
Right.
The methodology section also outlines all the specific steps involved in the study from start to finish.
Like what happens to the participants once they're enrolled?
It all starts with screening potential participants
Okay.
to make sure they meet the inclusion and exclusion criteria we talked about earlier.
Okay.
Then comes the randomization process,
Okay.
where they're assigned to either the rimonabant group or the placebo group
Right.
using the interactive voice response system, or IVRS for short.
That sounds high tech. What's the purpose of using this IVRS system?
It ensures that the randomization process is truly random
Uh-huh.
and unbiased,
Okay.
eliminating any potential influence from the researchers.
So it's like having a digital coin flipper
Exactly.
that guarantees a fair split between the two groups.
Exactly. Now, how do you think they maintain that crucial double blinding
Uh-huh.
where neither the participants nor the researchers
Right.
know who's getting what?
That's a good question.
Yeah.
Maybe they use identical looking pills
Yes.
for both the drug
You nailed it.
and the placebo.
The rimonabant and placebo tablets were designed to be completely indistinguishable, even packaged the same way.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
This helps eliminate any subconscious bias
Uh-huh.
from both the participants and the researchers.
It's all about creating a level playing field. ensuring the results are purely driven by the effects of the drug,
Mm-hmm.
not by expectations or preconceived notions.
Precisely. Now, once participants are assigned to their groups, the treatment administration begins.
Okay.
In the Crescendo study, Group 1 received a 20 milligram rimonabant tablet every morning before breakfast,
Wow.
while Group 2 received a placebo tablet in the same way.
And I'm guessing they monitor the participants' progress over time?
Absolutely.
Okay.
They have a detailed flowchart
Uh-huh.
outlining the various stages of the study
Okay.
and a table outlining the specific endpoints
Right.
being evaluated.
Okay.
They collect data at different time points,
Oh.
looking for any changes in those endpoints.
So they're constantly checking in, seeing if the drug is having the desired effect,
Mm-hmm.
any unexpected side effects are cropping up,
Yeah.
and monitoring those secondary endpoints as well.
Right. So they're looking at things like how often those major cardiovascular events occur,
Right.
any hospitalizations related to cardiovascular problems,
Yeah.
and unfortunately even deaths.
Right.
They're also keeping tabs on any adverse events,
Right.
whether they're related to the drug or not.
And they're making sure participants are taking their medications as prescribed,
Yeah.
checking for compliance.
You got it.
Okay.
And of course, they're conducting regular physical exams
Okay.
and lab tests to get a comprehensive picture of the participants' overall health.
It's remarkable how much detail goes into a clinical trial protocol.
It is.
It's truly a roadmap to scientific discovery.
It is. And we've only just scratched the surface.
Oh, wow.
The methodology section also covers things like defining the source of the data,
Okay.
outlining any permitted additional treatments participants can receive,
Okay.
detailing how to handle and report those adverse events,
Okay.
establishing criteria for when participants might need to withdraw from the study, and outlining procedures for following up with participants
Okay.
after they leave the study, regardless of the reason.
It's like they've thought of every possible scenario
Yeah.
to ensure the integrity and safety.
Yeah, they
From
try
that
our
research.
group. Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, after outlining the methodology,
Okay.
the protocol tackles the statistics section.
Uh-oh.
Don't worry, it's not as daunting as it might seem.
No.
This section outlines the statistical methods used to analyze the data
Uh-huh.
collected during the trial.
Right.
They determine the sample size needed
Hmm.
to get statistically significant results,
Okay.
develop plans for analyzing the data,
Okay.
figure out how to handle any deviations from the protocol,
Uh-huh.
and even plan for subgroup analyses to see if the treatment works differently in different groups of people.
So it's all about making sure they have enough participants
Yeah.
to draw valid conclusions
Mm-hmm.
and that the data analysis is rigorous
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
unbiased.
Exactly. And they also need to figure out how to handle missing data, which is always a challenge
Yeah.
in research.
Right.
What happens if a participant drops out of the study
Right.
or misses a few appointments?
Right.
They need a plan for dealing with those gaps in the data.
It sounds like they're building in safeguards at every step
Yeah,
to ensure the data they collect is reliable and meaningful.
that's the goal. And sometimes, despite the best planning,
Right.
clinical trials need to be stopped prematurely.
Why would that happen?
There are several reasons. Sometimes early results
Okay.
might show that the treatment isn't working
Yeah.
as expected
Yeah.
or that it's causing unexpected harm.
Right.
In other cases, the research question might become irrelevant
Right.
or a new treatment might emerge that's clearly superior.
So it's a judgment call,
Right.
balancing the potential benefits of continuing the trial with the risks
Yeah.
to the participants
Mhm.
and the responsible use of resources.
Right. Exactly. And speaking of responsibility,
Yeah.
the next section in the protocol is dedicated to ethics and regulations.
Okay.
This is where they lay out how the study will adhere to ethical principles
Okay.
and comply with all relevant laws and regulations.
This is a crucial aspect of
Okay.
any research involving human subjects.
Yeah.
What are some of the key elements covered in this section?
They need to describe the informed consent process in detail,
Okay.
outlining how they'll ensure participants understand the risks and benefits of the study
Right.
before they agree to participate.
Okay.
They also detail how they will obtain approval
Huh.
from an institutional review board, or IRB,
Right.
which is an independent committee that reviews research studies to
Mhm.
protect the rights and welfare of participants.
Okay.
And of course, they outline how they will handle any amendments to the protocol
Right.
and provide regular progress reports to the IRB.
So it's all about transparency, accountability,
Yeah.
and putting the participants' well-being first.
Absolutely.
This has been an incredible journey so far, unraveling the complexities of these crucial documents.
Yeah.
Before we dive into the next chapter or deep dive,
Okay.
why don't we pause here for a bit?
Sure. Welcome back to our exploration of clinical trial protocols. Before the break, we were just discussing the importance of ethics and regulations in research. Let's continue our journey through the remaining sections of this really fascinating document.
Okay, so we've covered ethics and regulations. What's next in the lineup?
Right after that comes quality and control.
Okay.
This section's all about ensuring the study is conducted to the highest possible standards.
Right.
It outlines the roles and responsibilities of everyone involved
Okay.
and the systems in place to monitor and maintain quality throughout the entire trial.
So it's like the quality assurance team for the entire research process,
That's a great way to put it.
making sure everything is done by the book
Mm-hmm.
and the data is reliable.
It's a shared responsibility. With both the investigators and the sponsors playing really crucial roles,
Okay.
the investigators are responsible for ensuring everything's done according to the protocol.
Right.
The data is collected accurately, and any issues or deviations are promptly reported.
So they're the ones on the ground making sure the day-to-day operations
Yeah.
are running smoothly and ethically.
Precisely. And the sponsors,
Okay.
typically pharmaceutical companies or research organizations,
Right.
they're responsible for the overall quality of the study.
Oh,
They monitor the progress, review the data,
okay.
and ensure everything complies with ethical, scientific, technical, and regulatory standards.
It's like a system of checks and balances,
Mm-hmm.
with both the investigators and the sponsors working together
Yeah.
to maintain quality and integrity.
What specific measures are put in place
Right.
to achieve this?
Yeah, what kinds of things do they actually do?
There are several layers of oversight.
Okay.
First, there are monitor visits, where representatives from the sponsor visit the research sites to observe the study procedures,
Okay.
review the documentation,
Right.
and check for compliance with the protocol.
So it's like having an external auditor come in
Exactly.
to make sure everything is running as it should.
Exactly. They also keep a close eye on serious adverse event documentation
Okay.
and reporting.
Okay.
Any serious adverse events, whether or not they're thought to be related to the study treatment,
Right.
need to be thoroughly documented and reported promptly
Right.
to both the sponsor and the IRB.
So it's about ensuring participant safety is paramount,
Yes,
and any potential risks are identified and managed quickly.
right. And they also monitor outcome events,
Okay.
making sure those key endpoints we talked about earlier
Right.
are being tracked accurately and consistently.
It's all about maintaining data integrity
Mm-hmm.
and making sure the study results are reliable and trustworthy.
Precisely. And on top of that,
Okay.
they also monitor other crucial aspects of the trial, like how the investigational product is allocated,
Okay.
whether participants are taking their medications as prescribed compliance,
Right.
and even the accountability of the investigational product itself.
So they're making sure the right people are getting the right treatments,
Mm-hmm.
everyone's following the protocol,
Yeah,
and there's no funny business going on with the study medication.
exactly. And to ensure the data itself is accurate and reliable,
Right.
they have procedures for data quality control,
Okay.
making sure everything is recorded properly
Right.
and any discrepancies are resolved.
Data integrity is crucial.
Absolutely. And finally, to provide an extra layer of oversight,
Okay.
there are audits conducted by the sponsors themselves
Wow.
and inspections by regulatory authorities like the FDA.
Wow. They really leave no stone unturned.
It is.
It's a comprehensive system designed to maintain the highest standards throughout the entire research process.
Exactly. Now, after covering quality control,
Okay.
the protocol wraps up with a section called Other Inclusions.
Okay.
This is where they include all those essential details
Ah.
that don't fit neatly into the previous categories.
Okay, so what kind of things are we talking about here?
They outline procedures for handling data,
Okay.
making sure it's stored securely and confidentially.
Right.
They define the publication policy
Mm-hmm.
for the study, clarifying how and when the results
Right.
will be shared with the scientific community.
Okay.
They also include details about finances and insurance,
Okay.
ensuring participants are covered in case of any unexpected expenses or complications.
Sounds like they're covering all the bases, from the scientific details
Yeah.
to the practical and ethical considerations.
They're trying to,
Okay.
and they also outline how compensation for participants works, if any is offered.
Okay.
They include a confidentiality statement emphasizing the importance of protecting participants' privacy,
Right.
and they attach any necessary supplements, like the case report forms used to collect data,
Uh-huh.
the informed consent forms,
Right.
the investigator brochures that provide detailed information about the study drug,
Okay.
and any patient information sheets that help participants understand their role and rights in the study.
It's remarkable how much goes into a clinical trial protocol.
It is.
It's truly a comprehensive document
Yeah,
that guides the entire research process.
it is. And we've only just covered the initial construction of the protocol.
Right.
But what happens when changes need to be made during the study?
That's a good question. Things don't always go exactly according to plan, do they?
Right. Unexpected issues might arise,
Yeah.
or new information might become available.
Yeah.
That necessitates adjustments to the protocol.
Right.
And that's where protocol amendments come in.
So they can't just change things on the fly.
No.
There's a formal process for making modifications.
Absolutely. Any changes to the protocol
Okay.
need to be documented, justified, and approved
Uh-huh.
before they can be implemented. Okay.
This ensures that any modifications are done in a controlled and transparent way,
Right.
preserving the integrity and safety of the study.
So how does this amendment process work? Who needs to be involved?
The research team first needs to submit the proposed changes to the FDA,
Okay.
along with a clear explanation
Right.
of why the changes are necessary.
Okay.
They also need to submit the changes to the IRB, seeking their approval as well.
So it's back to checks and balances again, making sure any modifications are ethically and scientifically sound.
Exactly. The amended study can only proceed
Okay.
once both the FDA and the IRB have reviewed and approved the changes.
Right.
This ensures everyone's on the same page,
Okay.
and the participants' safety and rights are protected.
What kinds of changes typically require a formal amendment?
It could be a wide range of things,
Okay.
but some common examples include increasing the dosage of the study drug,
Okay.
extending the duration of the study,
Okay.
adding new test procedures.
Or even significantly increasing the number of participants.
So anything that could potentially impact the safety or effectiveness of the study or the interpretation of the results.
Precisely. And it's important to note
Okay.
that even though there's no fixed review window,
Okay.
it's strongly recommended to communicate with the DCGI,
Uh-huh.
the Drug Controller General of India,
Right.
before proceeding with a new protocol or amendment.
So it's all about transparency and proactive communication with the relevant regulatory authorities.
Exactly. And to further demonstrate compliance with IRB requirements,
Okay.
it's customary to send the FDA copies of the IRB approval letters and the approved informed consent documents.
So everyone's in the loop, and there's a clear paper trail documenting the approval process.
Right. Now, there's a special exception when it comes to changes that are needed
Okay.
to eliminate an immediate hazard to participants, those situations.
Okay.
They can implement the changes right away to ensure safety, but they still need to notify the FDA afterward.
So safety always takes precedence.
Yes. But what about multi-center trials,
Right.
where the research is being conducted at multiple locations?
Yeah. Are there specific amendment procedures for those?
Yes. When a new site opens up for enrollment in a multi-center trial, the FDA needs to be notified about the new investigator.
Okay.
That's the lead researcher at that specific site
Okay.
within 30 days of enrolling the first participant at that location.
So even adding a new location requires careful documentation
It does.
and communication with the regulatory authorities?
Absolutely. They need to submit the site's 1572 form,
Okay.
which is a document used to provide information about the investigator and the research site, along with the principal investigator's CV.
Okay.
And it's important to understand that the FDA doesn't formally approve new protocol changes, or new investigators.
Okay.
They're more focused on being informed
Right.
and ensuring everything is in order.
So it's more about transparency and accountability than seeking explicit permission.
Exactly. And to streamline the process,
Okay.
sponsors are encouraged to batch notices of new investigators and submit them at 30-day intervals.
Okay.
This helps avoid overwhelming the FDA with individual submissions.
Efficiency is key.
It is. Now, what about information that doesn't necessarily fall
Right.
under the umbrella of protocol amendments, IND safety reports, or annual reports?
Okay. What are those called?
Those types of updates are called information amendments.
Okay.
And they cover any essential information that needs to be communicated to the FDA promptly.
Can you give me some examples?
Sure. Let's say the research team discovers new technical information
Okay.
about the study drug that might be relevant
Right.
to the trial's safety or efficacy.
Mm.
Or in some cases, they might need to inform the FDA about the cancellation of the study for
Right.
whatever reason.
So it's like keeping the FDA in the loop
Mm-hmm.
about any significant developments.
Yeah.
Even if they don't require a full-blown protocol amendment.
Precisely. These information amendments should be submitted as needed,
Okay.
but no later than 30 days after the information becomes available.
So transparency and timely communication are key here.
They are. Okay, so we've talked about amending protocols.
Right. But what about those moments when things don't go exactly according to plan?
Yeah.
We briefly touched upon deviations and violations earlier.
Yeah.
Can you expand on that?
Of course. It's important to distinguish
Okay.
between these two terms.
Okay.
A protocol deviation is any instance where the study procedures diverge from what's outlined in the IRB-approved protocol.
Well.
It's basically a departure from the plan.
So anytime they stray from the script.
Right.
Even if it's unintentional.
Right. It could be something as simple
Okay.
as taking a participant's blood pressure before obtaining informed consent,
Oh,
or weighing them with their shoes on.
okay.
These are deviations from the protocol. But they might not necessarily have a significant impact on the study's results
Uh-huh.
or compromise participant safety.
They're like minor slip-ups, but they still need to be documented and addressed.
Exactly. However,
Okay.
a protocol violation is a more serious matter.
Okay.
It's a deviation that could potentially compromise
Uh-huh.
the scientific integrity of the study,
Right.
affect the safety or well-being of the participants,
Okay.
or impact the quality or completeness of the data.
So it's not just a minor oversight.
It's not.
It's a breach that could have significant consequences.
Right. Can you think of any examples?
I see.
Yeah.
Enrolling a participant who doesn't actually meet the inclusion criteria,
Yes.
or failing to report a serious adverse event,
Yes.
or maybe even manipulating the data
Yes.
to make the results look better
You got it.
than they are.
Those are all serious violations
Yeah.
that could jeopardize the entire study and
Yeah.
potentially harm participants. Other examples include starting study procedures before informed consent is obtained,
Okay.
improperly unblinding the study,
Okay.
allowing participants to use prohibited medications, mishandling lab samples, missing visits,
Okay.
failing to keep adequate records,
Right.
and even intentional deviations
Wow.
from the protocol for non-emergency reasons.
That's a pretty extensive list.
Yeah.
It really highlights the importance of following the protocol to the letter.
It's not just about following rules
Right.
for the sake of following rules. It's about protecting participants, maintaining scientific integrity,
Right.
and ensuring the results of the study
Right.
are valid and reliable.
Like the foundation of trustworthy research.
Exactly. And to ensure everyone involved
Right.
understands the seriousness of protocol compliance,
Okay.
there are specific regulations in place,
Uh-huh.
like the ICH-GCP guidelines.
Refresh my memory. What does ICH-GCP stand for again?
It stands for International Council for Harmonization of Technical Requirements for Pharmaceuticals for Human Use Good Clinical Practice.
That's a mouthful.
It is a mouthful.
But essentially, these are the international ethical and scientific quality standards
Yeah.
for conducting, recording, and reporting clinical trials involving human subjects.
You got it.
Okay.
And they have a lot to say about protocol compliance.
Okay.
For instance, Section 4.5 emphasizes the importance of adhering to the protocol,
Right.
stating that investigators should conduct the trial in compliance with the IRB-approved protocol.
So no going rogue.
Right. And Section 4.5.2 specifically states that investigators should not implement
Okay.
any changes or deviations from the
Yeah.
protocol
Okay.
without proper authorization from the IRB, the sponsor,
Right.
and other relevant parties. The
Yeah.
only exceptions are when it's necessary
Uh-huh.
to eliminate an immediate threat
Right.
to participant safety, or when the changes are purely administrative
Okay.
or logistical in nature.
So they're building in some flexibility for unforeseen circumstances.
Yeah.
But those exceptions
Mm-hmm.
need to be justified and documented.
Exactly. And the ICH-GCP also outlines consequences for non-compliance.
Okay.
If monitoring or auditing
Mhm.
reveals serious or persistent non-compliance
Right.
by an investigator or institution,
Okay.
the sponsor has the authority to terminate their participation in the trial.
Wow. That's a serious repercussion.
It underscores the gravity
Right.
of protocol violations.
Yeah.
And when termination occurs due to noncompliance,
Okay.
the sponsor is required to promptly notify
Right.
the regulatory authority.
So there's a system of checks and balances to ensure everyone is held accountable for their actions.
Exactly. And Section 5.2.2 of the ICH GCP specifically states that the sponsor must view protocol noncompliance as a violation of agreed responsibilities, not just a minor slip-up.
It's about upholding the integrity of the research process and protecting the participants.
Right. Now, in the U.S. and India,
Okay.
the FDA and DCGI have their own perspectives on deviations and violations.
What are those?
The FDA doesn't distinguish between a deviation and a violation.
Okay.
They consider all protocol variances to be violation.
So they're taking a very strict approach, emphasizing that any departure from the protocol needs to be addressed and documented.
They are, and any deviation that's not reported and is later discovered during an audit is considered non-compliance with the FDA.
So transparency and meticulous documentation are crucial.
Absolutely. Now, who do you think is usually responsible for discovering these deviations and violations?
Well, I'd imagine the research team would be the first line of defense, since they're the ones directly involved in the study procedures.
You're right. They play a crucial role.
Yeah.
But it's not just them. Hospital staff like nurses, pharmacists, and even those involved in nutrition or lab testing might also notice inconsistencies.
So it's a team effort.
Yeah.
With everyone involved in the study being responsible for maintaining quality and compliance.
Exactly. And then you have those external auditors and monitors who come in specifically to check for compliance.
Right.
They have a fresh perspective and can often spot issues that might be missed by those closer to the study.
So it's like having an extra set of eyes to ensure everything is running smoothly.
That's a great way to put it. And sometimes, believe it or not, the participants themselves might be the ones to identify deviations or violations.
How so?
Well, they might notice something that doesn't seem right or doesn't align with what they were told about the study.
Okay.
Maybe a procedure is done differently than explained. Or they're asked to take a medication that wasn't mentioned in the informed consent form.
So it's important for participants to feel empowered to speak up
It is.
if they have any concern.
They're an integral part of the research process, and their observations and feedback are valuable. Everyone involved in a clinical trial has responsibility to ensure it's conducted ethically and scientifically.
This has been an incredible journey so far, delving into the intricate details of clinical trial protocols.
It has.
But before we wrap up this part, I'm curious, what are some of the challenges in making these protocols more accessible and understandable for the general public?
That's a great question, and one that researchers and regulators are grappling with constantly. The language of science can be complex and technical, but it's crucial that we find ways to bridge that gap and empower people to be active participants in their own healthcare decisions.
I agree. Informed patients make informed decisions. And that starts with understanding the research that informs those decisions. We'll explore that question further in part 3 of our deep dive. So stay tuned. Welcome back to the Deep Dive. We've been on quite a journey exploring the ins and outs of clinical trial protocols, those essential documents that guide the development of new medicines and treatments.
Yeah, we've uncovered their structure, their purpose, and all those layers of oversight that ensure these trials are conducted ethically and rigorously.
Exactly. And now for our final act, we're tackling a crucial question. How can we make these complex protocols more understandable and accessible to the general public?
It's a challenge for sure. These documents are often filled with technical jargon and statistical details that can be overwhelming for those outside the scientific community.
But it's essential that we find ways to bridge that gap. If we want people to feel confident about participating in clinical trials and trusting the results, they need to understand what's involved.
Absolutely. It's not about dumbing down the science. It's about making the information clear, concise, and engaging for everyone.
So how do we do that? Where do we start?
One promising approach is using plain language summaries. So instead of that dense technical language, we can create summaries that explain the key elements of the protocol in everyday terms.
So it's like translating the scientific language into something everyone can understand without losing the essential information.
Exactly. These summaries can highlight the purpose of the trial,
Okay.
the treatments being tested, the potential risks and benefits,
Ah,
and what participants can expect.
I love that. And maybe we can use visuals too, like infographics
Yeah.
or even short animated videos
Yeah,
to illustrate the key concepts.
that's a great idea.
Yeah.
Visuals can be incredibly powerful
Right.
for conveying complex information in a way that's easy to grasp.
Yeah.
They can help break down the protocol into bite-sized pieces,
Right.
making it less intimidating.
And maybe we can even create interactive tools,
Yeah.
like online quizzes or simulations,
Uh-huh.
to help people test their understanding of the protocol
Right.
and engage with the material in a more active way.
I like the way you think.
Yeah.
Interactive elements can make learning more fun and engaging,
Yeah.
and they can help people retain the information better.
Right.
It's about making the learning process more active
Right.
and participatory.
Right. And I think it's also important
Yeah.
to address people's fears and concerns about clinical trials.
Mm-hmm.
There are a lot of misconceptions out there,
Yeah.
and some people hesitate to participate
Right.
because they're afraid of being treated like guinea pigs
Right.
or exposed to dangerous treatments.
That's a valid concern.
Yeah.
We need to be upfront about the potential risks and benefits
Right.
of participating in a trial. And we need to emphasize that the safety and well-being of participants is always the top priority.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And we need to dispel those myths about researchers being secretive.
Or hiding information from the public. Transparency is key.
Couldn't agree more. Open communication is crucial.
Yeah.
We need to create a dialogue
Yeah.
between researchers
Right.
and the community so people feel like they're part of the process,
Yeah.
not just subjects in an experiment.
And maybe we can even use social media
Yeah.
to share information about clinical trials and connect people with researchers
Yeah.
working on studies that might be relevant to their health conditions.
That's a fantastic idea.
Yeah.
Social media can be a powerful tool for outreach and education.
Yeah.
We can use it to share plain language summaries,
Right.
visuals, and links to resources
Right.
where people can learn more.
This is so exciting. I am really energized by the idea of making clinical trials more accessible and empowering for everyone.
Me too. It's about democratizing medical knowledge and giving people the tools they need
Right.
to be active participants in their own healthcare.
Exactly. And, it's not just about informing patients.
It's also about educating healthcare providers, policymakers, and even journalists so they can better understand and communicate the complexities of clinical trials.
That's a crucial point.
Yeah,
We need a well-informed ecosystem to support responsible and ethical research.
absolutely. And I think it all comes back to transparency education and open communication.
Yeah.
When we break down those barriers, we create a world where medical progress benefits everyone.
Beautifully said.
Well, that brings us to the end of our deep dive into the fascinating world of clinical trial protocols. It's been a long but rewarding journey, uncovering the importance of these studies and exploring ways to make them more transparent and accessible for everyone.
I agree. It's been a pleasure diving deep with you.
The pleasure was all mine. Thanks for joining us on this journey of discovery. And remember, knowledge is power, especially when it comes to your health.